Hello, and welcome to Whisky Wins live stream. New format we're doing. Hopefully the audio is clear. The microphone, you're able to hear me well. And I've just realised that I've not put my virtual background on because I'm currently in a hotel in Malden on a course for work. So what better time to do a live stream with limited lighting and terrible internet connection. But yeah, this new format, this new streaming format series, if you will, that I'm aiming to do is focusing on shops, getting people in from the shops and discussing the shop, how they do things, and just basically diving a little bit deeper into the shop itself. And I'm hoping that this will attract more custom for the shops, and obviously bring views to the channel as well. That's obviously a bonus. But yeah, it's all about highlighting these shops for the great things they do and the good jobs that they're doing, and obviously shops that I'm frequently at, ones that I truly believe are doing good things and not just randomly picking shops online or anything like that. So yeah, we'll see who's in the chat. Currently, we've got Matt. He's actually at work at the moment in a meeting, so he's going to try and jump on if he can get out of his work meetings. We've got Gav. Hi Gav, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. Yeah, so I'm hoping the audio is all good and yeah, everyone can hear me well. So yeah, we'll basically get our guest, our special guest, VIP in, and we'll start talking about the shop. So I'm going to invite Will in if Will's ready to come in, and there he is. How's it going?
Oh, yeah, good. Thanks. How are you?
Oh, smashing. Like I said, a little bit worried about the internet connection as we've been testing it, but yeah.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. I'm loving your hotel room there as well.
Oh, it's beautiful. Only the best for us workers.
That's all right. I'm in a freezing cold shop in Dunkeld, so at least you look like you're cozy warm.
It is pretty warm, but I do have a hoodie on just to keep warm anyway. I hope you've got like a heater next to you.
I've got a heater right next to me.
So for people who don't know, Will from Dunkeld Whisky Box in Dunkeld, yeah, that's I don't know if you want to talk about, probably best for you to talk about yourself and the kind of history of Dunkeld and how Dunkeld Whisky Box came about. Yeah, I think you're probably better than I at that.
Aye, no worries. Yeah, hello everybody. Thanks for joining us. And Stuart, thanks so much for having us on. Yeah, so we've been here for 5 years and 28 days exactly. We opened on the 31st of October 2019, so just in time for COVID to hit, which was fantastic. Yeah, kind of rewind a little bit, I guess. It's myself and my wife Helen that own the shop. We're 50-50 partners in it. I used to run a whiskey tour company based in Edinburgh. So I've kind of been in tourism and then whiskey tourism for, I guess, about 10, 11 years before we had the shop. And I'd always kind of dreamed about having a wee shop with kind of random drams and stuff that you wouldn't find in the supermarkets and a wee spot to have a dram. And I used to hate it when I did tours. You know, you'd go to some places and you'd get a tiny little thimble, plastic thimble, and I've got a really big nose and I found it hard to get into them. So yeah, where you could come and have a dram out of an actual glass. That was quite important. But it was a bit of a pipe dream. Never thought it would happen. Certainly not when we lived in Edinburgh. You know, there's big competition and it's obviously very expensive if you're going to start a shop there. We moved up to Burnham, just at the other side of Dunkeld over the bridge. Just about 9 years ago, it'll be 9 years in December. I was still kind of commuting down to Edinburgh, running the tours and things, had a lovely little group that worked with me. And then eventually, I won't bore you with the full story, but decided to kind of move away from the tourism side of it. Took a bit of time out to look after my daughter when my wife went back to work. I'd say my wife, Helen, went back to work. And then, yeah, I was just wondering what to do. So I still had this idea of the shop, but I just couldn't figure it out and started doing kind of whiskey tourism consultancy, I guess, for use of a better term, with other tour companies that are new, just helping with itineraries and recruitment and that kind of thing. And it was great. I loved it. I still had this plan in my head. And then just one day was walking past the shop that I'm now in. It used to be a kind of outdoor shop. There was a little sign in the window that said for sale. And I thought, all right, went home and spoke to Helen. I had a bit of a chat. It's like, okay, you know, we'd need to buy it. We need to do all these things that go along with that. And then just randomly that night, we happened to be meeting old pals from university. And after a bucket of red wine, I kind of said to my pal Johnny, I was like, I think we could open a wee whiskey shop in Dunkeld, thinking he would try and talk us out of it. And he just went, that's a great idea. You should definitely do it before somebody else does. So long story short, we did it. We put our money where our mouth was. We had no experience of retail whatsoever. And it took quite a while to get, obviously, the shop purchased, strip it all out, apply for all the licenses and all that fun stuff, B-listed building. And then finally we opened the doors on the 31st of October. So here we are.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. So did you find the kind of transfer from the tourism side of things and doing those kind of consultancy to the shop quite smooth? Did you find it was quite a similar experience, or is it completely different?
It's a bit of both. I think the kind of, I guess the people side of it, the bit that I always loved, what got me into tours in the first place was, you know, speaking to people. And for me, whiskey's always been that connection, whether you like a dram or not. It's sitting down with company or talking about things, visiting distilleries with like-minded people. So the bit about being in the shop and people come through the door and you get that conversation, you've got that bond already, because most people that come in are looking for whiskey. So that side of things was relatively easy for me, maybe a little bit trickier for Helen, because she'd worked for various things that were not tourism related, certainly not whiskey related. In fact, Helen didn't even used to like whiskey. And now, frustratingly for me, her nose is better than mine, her palate's better than mine. She writes half the tasting notes. But anyway, we digress. So yeah, that element of it, the people and the talking bit was good. But then the kind of the retail bit, that was the bit that was the steepest learning curve about, you know, where to get things from, the pricing, how much to stock, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's been a very steep learning curve, but a brilliant learning curve. I wouldn't change anything.
I'm going to. There's some people here that are saying hi, so I'm going to say hi to them. So evening, peeps. This is Ryan Sutherland of 8 Doors Distillery, and also a friend of mine. He's also in our international bottle split group that we've got going on. There's only one person in it that makes it international, and that's Bart. But yeah, it's a good little group. And as you said, with whiskey, this is Mark as well. As you said, whiskey bringing people together. Yeah, if it wasn't for whiskey and my creating this Instagram account and YouTube account for a hobby, I would never have met so many people. And it's unreal what it's brought me. So I can only imagine the kind of bonds and the networking, if you will, that it's brought yourself. Evening, John. How's it going? So obviously the shop's relatively new. I wouldn't say it's in its infancy, because it's doing pretty well, and I would say it's past that. But it's amazing how much or how well it's done, I feel, or how well it's doing and currently doing for being that newer shop. And do you think like location has got something to do with that, or do you think it's purely just because of how good you are?
It's definitely not because how good we are. I think we've been very, I mean, don't get me wrong, we've worked really hard. I was going to say we've been lucky, but I think I'd probably rephrase that. We've worked really hard. We do work really hard. You know, it's just the two of us. And then Alan, some of you hopefully watching will have met Alan, our colleague that kind of works seasonally with us as well. I think it's a whole load of factors. You're right. We get where Dunkeld is and the way that Dunkeld is going at the moment. It's busier and busier and busier. It's got a real buzz about the place when it comes to food and drink. You know, you've got Redwood Wines round the corner, you've got the Taybank, the Athol, the Parth Arms, you've got Arran Bakery, all of these kind of foodie destinations. So we're definitely kind of riding on the back of that a little bit as well. There's a lot of visitors to Dunkeld. Not all of them want whiskey, of course, and because of the stuff that we stock, a lot of it is relatively kind of off the beaten track, I guess. So that brings a lot of visitors in, looking for things that they can't get at home, gifts for people as well. But we'd always kind of set our stall out that we didn't want to be I hate this term, a tourist whiskey shop, you know? I don't like the idea of somebody going, oh, I'm not going to go in there because that's just for tourists. It's going to be overinflated prices. They're just going to flog us anything. We've been very, very deliberate about making sure it's not kind of tartan and shortbread everywhere. The shop's open, it's airy. And I think one of the reasons is that we've done that is because now we've got a really good local customer base. So not just in Dunkeld and Burnham, but kind of Perthshire and Highland Perthshire as a whole that come regularly, even if it's just for a chat and to pick up a couple of beers, you know. Then the people that come back regularly, that are the sort of timeshare holders in the village, or they come up to see family in the village, or they're passing on the A9. So it's just building that kind of repeat business, I guess. And then when you put the tourists on top of that as well, and again, a lot of tourists that come to Dunkeld come once or twice a year quite often. So we're seeing a lot more familiar faces as well as all the new visitors, which is fantastic. So yeah, I'd like to think it's down to our hard work as well, but I think where Dunkeld is
for sure. I mean, yeah, that because for me, like I say, we've been going up to Blair Athol for years, and Dunkeld was just. I actually think what brought me into Dunkeld was probably the shop initially opening, just being on Instagram and seeing it advertised and stuff, because I'd always been going up past Dunkeld, like I said, straight to Blair Athol, maybe stopping off in Pitlochry, but then obviously coming in, seeing the shop and stuff. Now, since then, I've actually stayed in Dunkeld. We've intentionally got the train into Dunkeld to go down and have food by the river or whatever. So yeah, it's. I think that's. I wouldn't say it's a tourist trap. The shop itself, definitely not. Especially what you stock and how it's run. There's not many miniatures going about in the shop. I think that's a kind of. I think that's one of the biggest telltales of a kind of tourist trap, when there's these overpriced miniatures and there's a cabinet full of them. But definitely not a tourist trap. But that was what I was going to say as well. Obviously, you're saying you've got quite it's quite a niche selection of whiskey, if you will. It's not always official bottlings. It's not always the ones that you can find in the supermarket. So is there a tactic or a way that you go selecting your whiskies? Is there something? Is it just a case of what's kind of popular or what the flavour is, or is it just personal preference or trends, anything like that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And when we started, I was very naive because coming from the tourism background, I just kind of got in touch with all my old tourism contacts at all the distilleries that we went to and went, cool, I've got a shop. Can you just supply us with some booze, please? And they all went, no, you need to speak to the sales team and all the rest of it. So that immediately kind of set us back, I guess. But in hindsight, it was the best thing because we started to work with suppliers that we sort of knew by reputation, and we suddenly thought there's no point of us having the same thing that's in the supermarket. You don't want to go around the Co-op or Tesco's and go, oh, I can get that bottle there. Why would you come to the whiskey box to get that? So we deliberately tried to kind of set our stall out and say, okay, we're going to have things that aren't in supermarkets, which, yeah, turned out to be relatively tricky to start with until you find the right people. In fact, the first company we got in touch with before the license was even there, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but, was Springbank. And, I'd been to Springbank so many times, I'd been to Campbelltown so many times, taking visitors around, and they were fantastic. They said, oh yeah, of course, we'll get you set up with an account. And amazingly, when we opened, I've got photos of the shelves behind me covered in, there was Long Road, there was Springbank 15, Springbank 10, and we couldn't sell it. we had it on a tasting board, Springbank Flights, and nobody really knew what it was. It was incredible how the tables have turned. But anyway, so yeah, it was things like that. Independent companies, people that kind of shared the same values as us. We're a small business. We want to make sure that the price is right. We want to make sure that we believe in the quality of the liquid that we sell. So whether it's to my taste or someone else's taste, it doesn't really matter. So long as it's good quality liquid, then we're happy to sell it. And there's nothing in the shop that either Helen or myself wouldn't drink ourselves or be happy to give to friends and family and that kind of thing. And we kind of started from there. And then we're always changing. We've got some regular suppliers. Obviously, we stock local things. So we stock lots of Edredauer and Signatory, Car and More from Morrison's down the road. It's important for us to have local things. Obviously, the tourists want local things, but there's a lot of locals that drink the whiskey from around here as well. But yeah, then just trying to find independent bottlers, meeting people at whiskey shows, hearing from people like yourselves, people that come into the shop or people online or in forums saying, I found this bottler or that. And we'll try and check it out. We'll try and find it. And it's recommendations. And because we're so small, I'd love to stock more things, but we try just to kind of not get too excited. I think that was my mistake to start with, because we would get lists from people. I'd go, oh, amazing, let's get this. And Helen would be like, no, it's not for us. It's for the customers. And also you need to think about cash flow. So yeah, I don't know. I've kind of waffled on a little bit there, but does that sort of make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So you're obviously you're not, you can't just pick for your own taste, because then you'd only have this one kind of opinion in the shop. So yeah, but no, it's good that you're supporting obviously local, like you said, Edredauer, Signatory, and Morrison. They're all pretty local to Dunkeld. And I suppose that it does show. Obviously, one of the first things that I noticed when I walked into Dunkeld Whisky Box was the sheer amount of independent bottlers. These kind of smaller companies. Obviously, there's some core range in there, but nothing necessarily. Maybe you might find one or two in the supermarket, but nowhere near the amount of independent bottles. Yeah, I was blown away when I came into the shop and seen how many independent bottles there are, and that's what's good for me. And I think it's good because it gives you a good range, good quality, as you say, and a good selection to choose from. And there's always something different in the shop. It's not just the same core repeats.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously Aberfeldy is relatively local to us as well. Aberfeldy is part of a much bigger company. It's obviously owned by Bacardi and Dewar's, but it's still a local dram to us. And yeah, every now and again, you might find it on offer in a supermarket. And even though it's a big company, we often deal with Ross at the distillery. Either we'll go and collect our little order in the car when we take the wee one to swimming lessons, or Ross was actually here last night dropping off our order on the way home from work. So even though everyone goes, it's a massive company, why have you got those guys? It's like, well, we're still dealing with individuals who are just super helpful, super lovely. And why would we not have Aberfeldy on the shelves? Just because it is a big mainstream whiskey doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad whiskey. It's great stuff. So yeah,
like you say, it is difficult at times because we can all jump on that bandwagon of it should be independent, it should be small, and but these places have some wonderful people working behind them. Whether it is the Diageo or whatever, there are wonderful people working there that make it enjoyment and experience for you. And yeah, I don't think it's bad to necessarily support these companies, but yeah, there's obviously pros and cons to it all. Anyway, I'm going to say hi to some more people in the chat. So we've got Count Bassey on a Patreon. He's asking what's in everyone's glass. So I've currently got a Brigo Perth. I'm not sure how well you can see that. 14-year-old blend. It was a Tabe split. Will, I think, has got a Daft Mill. I don't know if he's moved on from it. 2011. Wraith, good evening. We've got, who else? We've got Ryan. Ryan's, I've said, yeah, Ryan's here. What's John saying? Dunkeld Whisky Box largely introduced me to independence. Yeah, with the Carnmores, I've got Will to blame.
I should probably say, actually, hi, John. I saw John earlier. He was in picking up a few bottles that he bought the other day. It's also John's birthday today, so happy birthday, John.
Happy birthday, John. Aye, Carnmore's an interesting one. I was going through a phase of buying loads of their stuff, but then it felt like they were coming hard and fast with the amount of releases and outturns or outruns. And it was difficult to keep up. I don't know if how you found the same if you found the same in the shop. If you've maybe been at all struggling to sell or keep on top of the amount that they were bringing out, or if it's been pretty straightforward for yourself.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's probably not just Morrison's and Carnmore. There's certain brands, that there's a high turnover of things. They're putting new stuff out all the time. And for us, as such a small shop, obviously we sell online, but that's not the main bit of our business. So some things sit around for a bit longer, just the nature of the beast. And it sort of comes in cycles. Sometimes you'll think, okay, we're going to sell loads of X distillery, flies off the shelves for ages. You restock it, and all of a sudden nobody wants it. They want something completely different. And we definitely found that with the likes of Carnmore. They were one of the earliest ones that we got into the shop as well. When Gray Mackay, that now works for the Delphi, he was working for Morrison's. I had a great chat with him. We had a couple of drams. The shop hadn't even opened yet. We said, yeah, we're going to stock some Carnmore and some Old Perth. And we couldn't keep it on the shelves. Those early releases, when we first opened, people were just going crazy for it, which was brilliant. And then more and more started to come, and we just kept buying and kept buying. And then, you suddenly realized, okay, there's a little bit less interest, but also we were starting to stock other independent bottlers as well. So we kind of had ourselves to blame too. But we suddenly realized, well, actually, we don't have to take every release. And that was a big learning curve for us, that if Carnmore or Thompson Bros or Glencadam or whoever comes along and says, okay, this is what we've got, we don't have to say yes to everything. And probably Helen's influence there, saying, don't say yes to everything, just take it easy. We can pick and choose. And that's the great thing about working with these other small companies, is like, they're totally fine with that. They don't expect us to take everything. So that's been a bit of a game changer for us. Just realizing we don't have to say yes to everything and being a little bit more selective.
So I know most people probably do know that when you buy like an allocation of whiskies from certain distilleries or companies, they push some of their bottles on. Say, if you take a certain amount of this, we'll give you these whiskies. Do you ever find that a bit overwhelming, or a little? Is it ever kind of persuade you to go elsewhere or look elsewhere, or are you still happy to take the full package? Does it ever dissuade you at all?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And the answer is yes, basically. So most of the folk that we work with have never said to us, you need to take this in order to get that. We kind of realize that there's certain allocations of some things that we may or may not get unless we buy a certain amount of core range, which is totally fine with us. And again, the first couple of years, I used to really worry, if we don't have that new release, people are going to think we're not a real whiskey shop. So let's order 80 billion cases of Glenallachie 12 so that we can get this.
Yeah.
But then you realize, actually, if we don't get that one-off limited release, it doesn't matter. I'd much rather cater to our customers rather than just go, okay, we need this big headline bottle, and then bankrupt ourselves by buying loads of other stuff that we will sell it and we know it's good stuff, but as a small shop, we can't sustain 12 or 15 cases of it. We need to buy 4 or 6 cases of it. So there's been a few suppliers that have kind of fallen by the wayside. I'm not going to name names or anything, and they're good companies. It's just we couldn't sustain the minimum orders that they required in order to keep an account open. So there's plenty more whiskey out there. So
it's a bit of a shame that some companies kind of demand so much, but on one hand you can see why. They obviously want to shift some of their stuff and get maybe some of their less popular stuff on the shelves and get them sold, but obviously everybody wants the kind of premium thing, and they're not just going to give it out for nothing. So you can understand that. What if there are any, I'm sure there are. Challenges are there of having a whiskey shop, and obviously you touched on COVID. You opened pretty much right up before that. How difficult was it to overcome that, and basically where you are today, you have came through it, and you are still healthy, still yeah.
Yeah, COVID was obviously a massive curveball for everybody. I think in some respects we were very lucky because we were buying things, whiskies, beers, gins. They don't go off like foods do, or they're not perishable goods immediately. So we were a little bit insulated. We didn't have to sort of panic, but we were not ready for it. We decided that we were going to get used to bricks and mortar retail, maybe spend 6 months getting the shop right, then we'd move online. When COVID hit and all that uncertainty, we shut the door when all the sort of camper vans were coming up from London and saying they'd driven through the night to escape it. Oh no, this is going to be bad. So yeah, we made the decision early to shut the door, and then kind of decided, right, we need to build a website. So we built a terrible homemade website, but it was functional and it was secure. And we started offering kind of local deliveries. So beer deliveries, whiskey deliveries. And I think the first week that we did it was basically just our mates being lovely and supportive. And I borrowed a mate's bike trailer and stuck a few cans of beer in and a couple of bottles of whiskey, cycled around the village, dropped them off. And then week by week, it kind of grew. And by the end of it, we were driving about 100 miles round Highland Perthshire every Wednesday and every Friday, dropping beers, whiskies, gins. We were picking up people's shopping, picking up prescriptions from the chemist. And it was phenomenal. Like, it was a horrible time, obviously, when nobody could go out. So we were getting messages between people, and it felt like whiskey was a little bit of social glue almost, because we were bringing folk shopping, and then somebody in the shop would say, oh, can you say hi to John for me? And you'd be passing that. And it was, yeah, it created this little buzz locally, I guess. And a lot of those people might not have known about the shop if it hadn't been for those online deliveries. And now they're real life customers. They come in, they buy the beers that they used to buy that we delivered. They buy the whiskies, they tell their pals. And then we started doing online tastings as well. Again, trialed it with some friends. It seemed to work. We didn't think it would. Me and Helen sitting in the kitchen, drinking and chatting, sending out these little packs. But we tried to replicate what it would have been if we could do drams in the shop. You've been in the shop. It's pretty small. We can seat 10 people at a squeeze. So we tried to keep the online tastings kind of 10 to 12 people so everybody could have a chat on Zoom and get to know each other a wee bit. And I realized at one point that we'd hit something, because there was a guy down in Cornwall on it. At the same time, there was a woman up in Shetland, and they were on the same Zoom tasting with us. Suddenly I thought, these people would never have stumbled across Dunkeld Whiskey Box if it hadn't been for this. And now those same people, like somebody came in the other day, and they're like, you're Will. I am, yes. Oh yeah, we did a Zoom tasting with you like 3 years ago. I'm from Plymouth, I think it was. We're passing up the A9. We thought we'd pop in. It's like, this is incredible. So I think because we were so new, we didn't have to really pivot. We had no idea what we were doing anyway. So it was kind of, yeah. So in a way, it sort of helped get our name established a little bit in a very difficult period. And we've just kind of grown from there, I guess.
Yeah, I think obviously the community side of things, it's good to hear. It's different from where I kind of stay, Falkirk. It's not got the kind of small village, well, if Dunkeld even is classed as a village, but a mentality of coming together, helping each other out. I wouldn't say it's not there, but it's different in these types of places like Dunkeld, like Pitlochry, these places coming together to help small businesses. And that's fantastic. Yeah, I can just imagine you cycling about with a bunch of bottles clanking away and someone's bloody heart medication or something.
That's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it was. Yeah, like a case of beer, 6 bottles of whiskey, and some heart medication. Like, this is crazy. But yeah, eventually I realized we couldn't do it by bike, and it had to be in the car.
So is there any other challenges that you've found quite difficult with owning a whiskey shop that at all that it's maybe felt demotivating or demoralising a little bit, kind of quite difficult? Because every time I think it, I think, oh, it must be wonderful.
Yeah, it's really hard. Like, it's hard work. Obviously, any kind of business is hard work. I'm not going to say it's not. Still love every bit of it. But yeah, there's definitely days. It's the unpredictability of it, that whether it's the winter or the summer, whether the village is busy or quiet, those things don't necessarily translate to us. So, peak season, Dunkeld is absolutely chock-a-block with people, but that doesn't necessarily mean that all those people want whiskey. And the same goes that if you look out the window and there's nobody around, it just takes one person to come in and be like, oh, I've been looking for that very particular bottle. So it's the unpredictable nature of it, I guess, that is the hardest thing. Knowing what to stock, how much to stock, watch the cash flow. And there's definitely been days, luckily it doesn't happen very often these days, but in the early days especially, there was just nobody around. We used to sell coffee. And I remember one day in the winter, the first winter we were open, somebody bought one bag of coffee. And I looked at the thing, we made 42 pence that day in sales effectively. And it was absolutely awful. And I thought, oh God, what have we done? This is, we have days like this. This is going to be disastrous. But then obviously you learn to realize that you've got to take the average across the month and day by day, not get hung up on the day-to-day business, but actually what is building and what comes on average. So yeah, it's the unpredictability of it's the hardest thing.
Is there, like you're saying, obviously it is unpredictable, but is there like certain trends that you see on certain periods, certain months or that? Does it obviously peak? Does it peak at Christmas and then come down after the New Year, or is there anything you can see?
Yeah, it's really interesting because we've had 5 years of trading, and you would expect to be able to look at patterns in that. And I was looking through our stuff recently, all our kind of year-end accounts, and because there's been COVID, because there's then been the boom after COVID, then there's cost of living crisis and all the other things that are going on in the world and duty rises and all of these things. There's no pattern that I can discern at all, which is incredibly frustrating because, the data is there, but it's very hard to find a pattern. So we've definitely noticed that in tourist season, if you like, there's definitely an uptake more of things that people can't get at home. And whether that's tourists from overseas or down in England or Wales or Ireland, they're looking for things that they're not going to find in their own local whiskey shop or their own supermarkets or their own market, whatever that might be. So we try to do our best to stock things that are unusual, that you're not going to find. UK exclusives obviously sell well to overseas visitors as well. And then, it steadies out over the season. Christmas is a big uptick, and it's mostly locals that are doing that, and locals that are buying online from us to ship down to relatives in other parts of the UK and things as well. So yeah, it's actually amazing to see the locals supporting us through the festive period. Yeah. And then obviously Hogmanay itself, we sell plenty during Hogmanay because we're in Scotland. And then January, Dunkeld becomes a ghost town as all the locals just disappear. So yeah, we take a wee holiday in January when the wee one's off school and things as well. But
makes sense, especially I spend time with family. Ryan's just saying this was relating to earlier. You won't have that issue with us. He's obviously talking about 8 doors. I'm not sure if you've got any other stuff. If you've got the gin, because I'm not really a big gin fan, but I've heard that it's from people that I talk to. Like I spoke to you at Lockray, that people say it's like selling really well and flying off the shelves. But
yeah, we've actually got some 5 ways the liqueur at the moment. And I've been kind of 8 doors has been on my radar for ages. Ryan's been in the shop. Hi, Ryan. I've been dealing with Gregor at 8 doors as well. And I really love what the guys are doing. And it's that tricky bit for us of, obviously, they've got their own really good blended malts and things and their own brand. It's just not the right time for us because we've got some other stuff at the moment. But the liqueur is selling really well. And hopefully, next year we've already been talking about kind of looking at new ranges and new things just to try and keep the shop, keep it current. So yeah, don't worry, Ryan. I'll be back in touch. Nothing like a bit of pressure.
I think he was waiting for that. Just I was hovering over the comment. I was like, "Well, I'll bring it up." We're just attacking you. Wait, when are you going to? This is actually this was the main reason for doing this, was just to sabotage you and see why there was no 8 doors, or 7 sons, should I say? But yeah, aye, no, it's definitely a community shop, obviously, and like you say, independent, and I think it's a great shop, and every time now we're traveling up to Pitlochry, I always annoy the missus by saying that I'm going to stop into Dunkeld and have a chat, and she says, "Why?" Because you chat for so long, and I'm like, "Yeah." Yeah. But no, I think everybody that works in the shop, like you say, you've got a great bunch there. And I do like coming into the shop and seeing Wasted Degrees as well. It's good that you stock them. They're a great bunch of guys, and it'll be exciting times to see their new brewery when it comes in Pitlochry.
Yeah, definitely. And they're somebody that we kind of stumbled across before we had the shop. They were at the Logie Rate Market, and I've been a fan of kind of, sort of American style hoppy IPA beers for ages. And I bumped into them. They were there selling it out the boot of the car. Took some home, tried it, went, "Oh, this is amazing." Every time we'd go back, buy some more of it. And then when we opened the shop, it's like, right, we'd start out having a few beers. What are we going to get? And the 2 beers we got in first was Wasted Degrees and Cromarty, because I'd always been a fan of Cromarty as well. And then, because of those local deliveries, we kind of thought we'd maybe have like 2 or 3 breweries and that would be it. But then people started asking for more and more beers with the deliveries, because obviously you're not going to buy a bottle of whiskey every week, although some people were, no judgment, and it was great. It kept us going. But then we suddenly thought, well, actually, if there's a demand for these beers locally, then we might as well start stocking them. And again, beers that you're not going to find in Aldi and Lidl on offer and things like that. And yeah, the guys at Wasted Degrees have just been absolutely brilliant at supporting the shop. They delivered to us at short notice. They're great. So, aye.
Yeah, and obviously they've got their ties to whiskey as well, through Morrison's and the recent Glenord, was it, that they done in their porter, I believe. Really enjoyed that. I actually ended up buying 2 bottles of that. Going past saying stock some German beer. Yeah, German and Belgian for me. I'll be drinking that.
We've toyed with it, but and I'm going to give a plug to another local business here. We've got Redwood Wines round the corner, who are a phenomenal wine shop and bar. They do amazing food as well, and they stock a little selection of German and Belgian beers. So we don't step on each other's toes. They've got those beers, we've got our beers. So yeah, it's kind of perfect.
Oh, that's good then. Don't want to steal their business.
No, exactly, and that's again a great thing about Dunkeld. It's like, okay, what have you got? Well, we'll try not to have the same stuff. Every now and again there might be a bit of overlap, but it's there's enough for everybody, hopefully, if we all work together.
Has the shop, do you think, ever had any impact from people like myself, like influencers, social media? Because obviously you're quite, I think you're on top of your social media. It's quite frequent, which is good, and obviously that brings attraction to the shop, and it brings new customers and stuff like that. But I'm not sure if you are involved in the Auspice at all or anything like that. I can't remember if I've seen you on there, but do you think these types of new outlets, modern outlets, are bringing custom to the shop at all?
Yeah, I think it probably does. It's kind of hard to quantify, because we're not, our own social media. If we see an uptick on that, or somebody comes in and says, "Oh, I saw your post about this bottle, which one is it?" then that's obviously easy for us to quantify. But yeah, for kind of external social media, it's hard to know. There's definitely some, though. People like yourself, you've been a great supporter of the shop, and people come in and say, "Oh, I was either speaking to Stuart, or I saw Whiskey Wims online. He'd been in the shop, so I thought I'd come into Dunkeld." So it's things like that definitely help. We got a wee article. Jason did something on Dramface a little while ago as well. Things like that. It's like, which is phenomenal for us, you know, to be asked along to these things is just amazing. As someone who is a total whiskey geek like myself, it's just super exciting to be part of that. The Oswas, we kind of tried to get involved a little bit. Quite often I don't have time to watch stuff and keep on track with it. But people come in and say, oh, I heard you mentioned on such and such a blog, or I heard you mentioned on here. We're totally oblivious to it. It's just people that have been in the shop and then they've decided out of the goodness of their hearts to mention us. We've never kind of paid for an influencer or anything, and certainly never would. I know that's a subject that's close to your heart, Stuart. So,
what are you on about? You paid for this tonight.
I know the check's in the post. Nobody can hear this, right? Nobody can hear this.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely great, and especially that, I guess you'd call it organic growth from social media, whether it's our own stuff, and then when people kind of share that as well. And as I say, people who have got, maybe people who are not influencers, but have a little bit of influence that decide out of the goodness of their hearts to share the story about our shop or just to recommend us, even if it's just to one or two people. It's fantastic, and it means we're doing something right.
Yeah, like you say, obviously Jason, some people hate him, some people love him. He's that type of character, but he has, for me, I feel quite a big pull. A lot of people look at him for advice in whiskey, and see him as one of those. I don't think he'd like be called an influencer, but I think he pretty much is at this point. I hope he's not watching because he'll probably be annoyed. But yeah,
I think the other thing actually to keep on that point is that it's not necessarily people who are talking about our shop. We notice a big uptick in things when people come in and say, "Oh, I saw this review of this whiskey on insert trusted blog here," kind of thing, you know. Example would be, I think there was a Williamson a wee while ago that came out from Berry Brothers, and I think it had been on Ralphie. I hadn't seen it. Loads of people were coming in the door or phoning and saying, "Oh, I saw this review. Do you have this bottle?" So it's not necessarily that someone's mentioned our shop, but all of a sudden this bottle becomes sought after. And after all the big online retailers have sold out of it, people obviously start to dig a little bit deeper. And that's when we're probably going to pop up on Google. Other search engines are always available. And then they can find that bottle via us. And then hopefully that then leads them to become a repeat customer if they get good service or they know they can find something that's a little bit off the beaten track. So yeah, it's the kind of the influencers, social media people, whatever it might be, that promotes certain bottles that then if we have them in stock, then that's definitely a good thing.
Yeah, I suppose I didn't think about that. It is so obvious when you've now eloquently explained it, though, that when someone reviews a bottle, like Ralphie, people will end up, and I think you're right, that Williamson Berries Bros one, he went daft for that, and I remember the rush of people chasing after it, and that's something I didn't really think of. Matt's saying he'd publicly never admit to knowing me. That's probably good. A good idea, Matt. Is there anything like a bottle, right, that you see that sells frequently in the shop? Is there kind of popular purchases? Is there anything that sticks out? Anything that you see that's like selling over and over that you have to keep stock of? And obviously, kind of Springbank and that you know they're going to go off the shelf. But yeah, is there anything you see yourself?
Yeah, things that are, I guess, things that people locally come in for. So, for example, Old Perth. We sell loads of Old Perth. There's a lovely sort of group. They all drink across the road in the Perth Arms, and they love Old Perth. So we've always got Old Perth so that when they come in, we can say, yeah, here we go. Things like the Thompson Brothers, the TBBSW, that's got a great local following, but also because it's the Thompson Brothers, lots of people know it. So more and more people, when they're passing, now they're coming in and saying, do you have this? And once they know that we're a stockist, they come back, which is great. So things like that, we sell a lot of. Obviously, through the sort of summer months when it is peak tourist season from overseas, we sell a lot of Edredauer. We don't sell as much Aberfeldy because you can get Aberfeldy all over the world. You can get Edredauer in a lot of markets as well, but a lot of folk don't see it. They're maybe not looking in specialist retailers in wherever they are. Maybe they're from Canada or Sweden or what have you. So, yeah, we sell a lot of Edredauer because it's obviously just up the road and somebody wants a memento to go home with. They might not even be a whiskey drinker, but...
yeah, there's always that thing of, I got this in Scotland or Scotland.
Exactly.
This is Edredauer.
Exactly. And, you know, it's local, but it's good quality. I really like Edredauer. I like that it's small. I like the fact that if our minimum order doesn't meet the free delivery, we can just go up and collect it, you know, and often Andrew's there on the forklift to greet us. So, you know, it's great. It's great. But yeah, apart from that, it's kind of tricky because, as I was saying earlier, we don't really have this pattern. You try to stock things that you think are going to sell, but also we're trying to stock things that are different. So because we stock lots of indie bottlers and single casks, if somebody comes back in and says, oh, I had this great Finn Thompson Petile the other day, that was nuts. Can I have another one of those? Actually, I'm really sorry we sold out of it. There's 174 bottles. So then it's the bit of, oh, okay, I don't like to leave disappointed, so maybe you can try something else. But yeah, that's the interesting bit, I guess.
Do you ever find it like difficult? Because obviously independent bottles, I think, are niche to non-drinkers or non-enthusiasts. You get the enthusiasts, the geeks who are right into whiskey and they love independent bottlers, see it as better value, something's better quality, and are not as tainted as a product coming from official distilleries and that. Do you find it difficult when someone like that, say a kind of new person to whiskey comes into the shop looking for something and they know the likes of the big distilleries like Glenallachie, Glenfiddich and all these type of distilleries, Macallan, and not trying to sell them, but try to guide them into the world of independent bottlers?
Yeah, definitely. And we try to make sure that we've got stuff at all ABVs as well. I think that's a big thing when somebody comes in and says, you know, I'm used to drinking, say, a Balvenie double wood. I'm ready to make a jump into something independent. What have you got? I could easily sell them something that has been finished in a sherry cask. It's been in bourbon initially, but it might be 58%. And you kind of say that to them and say, you know, you need to water this down or you can just play about with it. It immediately puts them off. I don't want that. I want something that I can just sit and drink. So it's trying to find that person the right dram, the right balance. And that's half the fun of the shop. And I'd like to think that when people come in and say, okay, I'm looking for this, we can ask them the right questions. We can find them the right dram. And it can be very daunting. I remember getting into whiskey for the first time, and I've got pals who are kind of whiskey drinkers, but pals locally who've said to me, until you guys opened your shop, I would never buy my whiskey from a whiskey shop. I would always buy it in the supermarket because I feel intimidated going into whiskey shops.
Oh, really?
Whereas our shop, it's very relaxed. You know, we're happy to sell whiskey to anyone so long as you're over 18 and to find out what you might like. And that's why I think we definitely wanted to have as many open bottles as possible. Obviously, if we can get sample stock from distilleries and things and bottlers, that's fantastic. That's obviously not always going to be practical for them. So we do our little drop-in drams. I don't know if you can see our little tasting board there. So people can sit down, they can try a dram if they're not driving, and they say, oh, actually, this cask strength whiskey that you've recommended is for me now that I've kind of played about with it. Or actually, no, that's too strong. I want to try something that's 46% that I've moved up from my Balvenie double wood or whatever. So, yeah, again, I've probably waffled a bit there. Does that make sense?
No, it's absolutely fine. There's no, don't worry about waffling. It's what I do all the time. If not waffling, I go into a different tangent, so you're fine. What I did want to say to the chat is if there's any questions that anybody has for Will, we'll attack them now. We'll sabotage them and fire them in, and we'll see what they are. I did have one very crude question, and it was the most expensive bottle. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm just there's somebody just knocking on the window.
all right.
Sorry, hang on.
It's okay. I take you. On you go. On you go. I've currently got a Glencadam in my glass. This is a 2006 port, single cask, and it was a Tabe split as well. So let us know what you're drinking. That's what I'm currently tasting.
Sorry, folks. Somebody is just trying to get into the shop. I just need to answer the door. This is the joys of independent retail. I'll be back in 1 minute. Sorry,
No bother. That's all right. The joys of being right on the street. Aye, they've obviously seen the light on and just thought to chance it. Knock knock, give me your most expensive whiskey yet. No, but I'll probably conclude and say this anyway. But if you haven't been to Dunkeld Whiskey Box, you definitely need to get there. It's obviously you can see Will, hear Will, very sociable, very happy to chat. And when you go in the shop, it's always a great chat, whether it's Will or whether it's one of the other two. But yeah, it's good. And like he says, he's got the just up to the left of his little window. He's got drams that you can buy, and sometimes he will give you a little dram to try. But you didn't hear that from me. But yeah, it's relatively easy to get to as well. Driving up the A9, and it's a lovely place. Dunkeld itself, Dunkeld as a place, it's quite quaint. There's places for lunch and stuff. Obviously, it's got like a nice river running through it. It's the best way to describe it is quaint. But yeah, I really like Dunkeld. I've always been a big fan of Pitlochry and Blair Athol. But since the whiskey boxes came on the scene, I've slowly started enjoying Dunkeld more as a village, because it gives me a reason to go in and buy or try whiskies. But yeah, there's a lot to do in Dunkeld. It is small, and I was actually saying to Will beforehand that it's a little easy to miss it or to pass it, just because the only time you're going to be visiting Dunkeld is for one purpose. And because it's on the A9, it's quite easy just to speed by. But yeah, since they started opening in 2019 and I've seen them on social media, I was like, I need to stop off in here whenever I'm travelling up the A9. So Count Basie, haven't been to Scotland. That's it's a sad state of affairs, but I can understand, especially if you're travelling from afar. It can be a quite a costly trip, but definitely you need to get over here. Like I said, Dunkeld's beautiful. It's this I don't know if you would class it as Highland. I reckon Ryan would slap my hand for saying it's Highland, but it's just, I don't know, picturesque, a romantic little village. And as Will's already explained and said during the chat, brilliant community atmosphere. Everyone's there together, and yeah, it's not as busy as the likes of Pitlochry and stuff like that. It's not a place where you go into and you're bumping into people, because it does have quite small streets. Pitlochry can be like that in the height of summer, especially peak tourism. You feel like there's a lot of people going about, and you're kind of rubbing shoulders with people. But I've never felt that in Dunkeld. And yeah, there's plenty of places to stay in Dunkeld as well, and there's a lot of places to go around there. As Will's already said, Aberfeldy's not too far, so if you want to do some distillery tours, you've got Aberfeldy, you've got Blair Athol. Unfortunately, Edgeworth still closed off to the public, but yeah, there's a lot to do around Dunkeld. I know, speaking to people at work who ride bikes and do downhill and stuff like that, and they've been through and stayed in Dunkeld because there's a lot of kind of cycle routes nearby, downhill routes. So even if you're not there for the whiskey and you're there for some exercise and downhill fun, there is loads to do. And yeah, Will probably knows way more. There's a lot more things to do round and about Dunkeld, but that's just some of the things that I can think of. So looking forward to a proper bypass at Dunkeld. It's definitely Highlands though, just the soft southern part. Yeah, I knew Ryan would have something to say. I'll go on single now until welcomes back. Yeah, it is Highlands, I suppose. It just passes that barrier. But yeah, you should, if you've never seen Dunkeld or been to Dunkeld, you should Google it. Very picturesque. Those kind of huge, I don't know even know what type of trees they are, but oak trees maybe. Anyway, it's very picturesque. What drinks are you trying tonight? I have currently got a Glencadam in my glass, and I've already had a Briggle Perth, but this is 61.6% ABV, so I might need to take my time with it. As I've said, I'm in Malden on a training course for work during the day, so I'm not currently on a training course, but I'm in a hotel room, as you can tell, and it's the Malden Christmas lights turning on event, Christmas markets, and the hotel that I'm staying at, the entrance is right below my room window, and they've decided to put two huge speakers out and blast Christmas music. And yeah, I don't think you can hear it, but yeah, it's pretty loud. I can hear it through this. You want to visit Scotland, but you don't know where to go first. Yeah, it's definitely tough to decide where to go in Scotland because it's just such a lovely country. I know I can be biased, and probably am biased, but I've got a lot of love for this country, and yeah, there's a lot of places to go. I would say I would say like kind of I don't know because you don't want to miss the likes of Glasgow and that. Central Belt's like a decent place to be located because you can then travel to different areas quite easily, I think. But the Central Belt isn't always the nicest to look at. Whereas where Will is located, Dunkeld, Pitlochry, that type of place, depending on what you're coming over for, it's a really beautiful part of Scotland. So yeah, I wouldn't want to have to decide where to go visit Scotland if it was my first time. I'm sure there's plenty of websites to check. But yeah, if you're coming over for distilleries, I think Highlands is a good shout. Maybe Speyside because yeah, there's so much up there. So and it's an easy base to stay at. We'll get let me see. We'll get Will back. There he is.
Hi, sorry about that.
It's no bother.
Yeah, when you're a small shop in a rural part of Scotland, you don't turn down customers. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that the person that just came in is off the telly as well. But anyway.
Okay. Just drop that there.
I know.
Ryan was saying the joys of being on a street, like a street front. Obviously, somebody walking by, seeing the light on.
Yeah, I know. I was going to do this at home, and I thought I've got an 8-year-old at home. There's no way that this is going to go well because she quite likes to join in, and then she'll tell me off for not letting her get to sleep. So I thought it'll be safe to do it in the shop. But yeah, I'm sat right in the window. So yeah, sorry about that, everybody. But thank you for letting me take some more business.
Yeah, Count Bassie's saying he can't decide where to go in Scotland. I was trying to describe Dunkeld, and Ryan's making fun of me because I don't know what the trees are. But when you're in Dunkeld and you see all the trees, I was trying to describe the beautiful scenery. And obviously, there's a lot to do around Dunkeld with the distilleries if you're into whiskey, but there's also like bike trails and stuff. There's a lot of cycle routes. So yeah, I wouldn't be able to pinpoint where someone should go first in Scotland because it's a big. There's too many places, too many good places.
Yeah, there is. And yeah, Dunkeld's amazing. I was 17 years in Edinburgh, but been coming here for years, fell in love with the place. But yeah, my background, as I said before, was tours of Scotland, which then morphed into whiskey tours. But yeah, I used to go all over. But Dunkeld is quite a magical place. It is beautiful, right on the Tay. As you say, you've got all the trees around. You've got loads of larch trees as well, the parent larches, the cathedral, bike trails, really good food. There's a half-decent whiskey shop. You know, it's definitely worth coming to at the Dunkeld.
Yeah, there's loads to do. It is packed. Definitely packed. I had a couple of mates from work. They were up on some of the bike trails and that. Can't remember the names of them, but they said they had an absolutely fantastic time. I did say to them, I said, "Oh, did you go into the whiskey shop?" And they're like, "Oh, there's a whiskey shop in Dunkeld." I was like, "Yes." Yes, there is.
It's okay. There's people that live here that come in and go, "Oh, how long have you been open?" Like, okay, 5 years, but yeah, it's not a massive place, but it's great. It's great that people are still discovering us.
So I like how you orchestrated a shop, someone pretending to come to the shop just so you could get away from my question about most expensive bottle sold.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, there's someone else at the door.
No.
Yeah, we don't sell. We try not to stock the kind of really premium, high end stuff because it's not stuff that I'm super passionate about or that Helen is. So yeah, whiskey is for drinking as far as we're concerned. But we realized after we'd been open for maybe a few months that people were coming in looking for certain things, whether they were collectors, whether they were looking for drinking whiskey, but at a certain price point. And I remember somebody came in actually and said, "I'm looking for a whiskey that's about £1,000." I was like, "Oh, what kind of whiskey would you like?" "It doesn't matter. It just needs to be about £1,000." I was like, "Well, I don't actually have any of that, but I can sell you, 5 bottles of this £200 whiskey, and this is going to blow your mind." I think it was in a Delphi Glenrothes or something, a single cask. It's like, this is amazing. That's not what I want. I want something that's £1,000. We didn't have anything. So we thought, well, we should probably try and stock something in case that person comes back. So yeah, every now and again we have things like what did we sell? A 30-year-old Glen Turret. We've got a Signatory Macallan at the moment, which says Macallan on it, so that's just shy of £2,000. But that's about as high as we'll go. And we don't usually carry a lot of stuff like that at all.
What's the cheapest bottle you've got in the shop?
At the
Can you tell off
moment,
memory?
yeah, I've got an Adelphi blend, which is 24 quid. I've got an Edwardera cream, which is 19 quid.
The Edgedower cream's pretty good as well. I
Is.
think it's high. I've got more tough questions for you.
I'm ready.
Edgedower or Blair Athol?
Ooh. If it's distillery stuff, Edwardera. If it's indie stuff, Blair Athol.
Yeah, I think that's
That was a
very
politician's answer, wasn't it?
Yeah. To be fair, it's probably what I would have went with as well. Yeah, definitely. I mean, what is it, 1% or 2% of Blair Athol actually goes to the single malt? But do you know if at all if Edgedower are planning to open back up to the public? Have you heard anything? Is there any rumours or whisperings in
I
the
knew you were going to
Highlands?
ask me that. No. Every time I go up to collect stuff from them, I kind of ask it in a slightly different way. I know a few of the folk that work up there in production as well, and there's no rumblings or anything. So I don't know. I don't think it will, not for the foreseeable anyway. They're putting out some really good stuff at the moment. Signatory are putting out some great stuff, and I think they're just focused on that. So it's a shame because the visitor centre is there. It's a great spot, and the tasting bar used to be fantastic. So don't get me wrong. We do quite well out of it because obviously when people realise if they're staying here and they know they can't go to visit Edwardera, they come in and we can do a little Edwardera flight for them. So it works out for us. But yeah, it's a shame. Hopefully it will reopen at some point, but I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, I constantly ask when I'm up. I ask whoever and everyone because we visited and I always described the Signatory shop when we walked in like a kind of whiskey Willy Wonka wonderland of just unreal whiskey that Signatory have, and their selection's amazing, and obviously they're putting out good value at prices as well.
Yeah, exactly, and it's great from our perspective because obviously Edwardera is the local distillery, but the fact that all the Signatory stuff is bottled up there as well and it's warehoused up there, so it's still got that local connection. So it means if somebody is looking to buy something, whether it's for themselves or for a gift, that is local, it's not necessarily that the liquid needs to be distilled here. It just means it needs to be from here. So it opens up a whole new world of stuff. Like I think behind me there's a Signatory Kalila. So that's got this local connection, but obviously it's from Isla. So it's good for us.
So I have a bit of a gripe with shops. When I go into a shop, and obviously the customer service isn't too good, but I always think when you go in and there's drams there, there's drams able to buy, or there's people are able to give you drams. Is there anything that you've seen, and you don't need to name shops, but is there anything that when you go into another shop and you go, oh, they're doing this a bit, I wouldn't do this.
Thanks for putting me on the spot there. So, yeah, it's not so much now because I literally don't have time to go to other people's shops. But I think from when I was doing tours, there were certain things that used to happen at some whiskey shops all over Scotland. When I had guests who were from all over the world, but predominantly they were Swedish or from North America, Norwegian. So yeah, Scandinavia, North America, Canada were our biggest markets. And these were people who were well into their whiskey. You would take them to some whiskey shops, and I certainly won't be naming names, but yeah, it was that customer service. It was just that bit of, oh, these guys are visitors. They're just going to buy whatever. And I knew a wee bit about whiskey then. I probably know a wee bit more now. But I knew that they were being kind of pushed things that they could probably find at home, or that actually wasn't that interesting for them. So yeah, the customer service aspect, I think, is the thing that I took from all of that. Was if somebody comes through that door, it doesn't matter who they are, whether they're first-time whiskey drinkers or a seasoned veteran looking for something completely nuts, which is the stuff that I like. Everybody gets treated the same, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you're from, what your background is, what your whiskey knowledge is. Everybody gets treated the same in terms of the customer service they get. And that I think is the thing that I took away from those tour days was, yes, just the way that people got treated sometimes, depending on who they were or where they were from, or that perception of who they were. And that used to frustrate me quite a lot. But yeah, I must say that most of the whiskey shops that I've been to now, and especially now knowing the retail side of it, are amazing. And they've been super helpful. There was so many shops that we kind of almost turned to for advice. And I didn't think anyone would give us advice, kind of said, we're starting out, we're brand new. Can you help us a little bit? And they did. And it wasn't like, oh, we'll help you. But like the guys up at Aberdeen Whiskey Shop, just through Instagram and just kind of keeping in touch and saying good luck. It's things like that from an established, respected business. They think, oh, actually, this is great. I'm going to have to give them a plug, the Little Whiskey Shop down in England. And I think they just got in touch through Instagram or Facebook and said, oh, I see you opening a new little shop. We've got a little shop. Good luck. And then it sparked a conversation. I asked them where they got their packaging from to ship stuff out. They told us it's still the supplier that we use to this day. And without them, we'd probably have a lot more broken bottles going out in the mail. So, yeah.
It's good. Sorry to throw that question in.
It's all good. It's fair game.
But,
I don't have to answer it.
Yeah, you don't have to answer anything. No, I think, like, for me, it's always customer service. There's, like, when you come into Dunkeld Whiskey Box, I was just saying when you were away, from the chat, I was saying to them, like, it's always great customer service. You're always, like, greeted with a smile. Everyone's up for a chat. Like, it's never, it's never. It doesn't feel fake or rushed or anything like that. You feel like you've got the time that you can just sit and have a chat. And I know people can get a bit maybe awkward about that, or feel like they're taking up someone's time, especially when they're trying to run a shop. But yeah, it's good that you have that and take the time. So yeah, that's one of the. If I was to praise the shop, that's one of the best things about the shop. Obviously, the selection of whiskey as well, but the people.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. As long as people feel comfortable and happy, and we've said it to so many folk that come in that are regulars, that you're not going to buy a bottle of whiskey every time you walk past the shop. But I don't want people to feel they can't just pop in and say hello. So there's a gentleman that he commutes from London. He's been a regular since we opened. And I see him in the village sometimes, and he always looks a wee bit sheepish because he came in the other day. He says, "Oh, I don't want to come in if I'm not buying anything. Don't feel I'm ignoring you." I said, "Just come in and sit and have your coffee, and we'll have a chat and have a catch up. You don't have to buy anything. In fact, I would feel bad now if you did, because I know that's a sympathy purchase, which obviously I'll take. But it's that bit of, I want people to come in, feel relaxed, and it's lovely when people come in from the village even, and just pop in for a dram on a Friday, and they sit on the most uncomfortable seats in Dunkeld. I'll put my hand up and say that. But, they'll just share a couple of drams and just have a blether for a couple of hours, and it's lovely because they're chatting with themselves. I'm serving folk, I'm chatting with them, and that's what I always wanted the shop to be, a place where you can just come and enjoy whiskey for what it is, whether that's purchasing it, drinking it, or chatting about it. That's what I want it to be anyway.
Aye, it is one of those things. I don't know. You might feel differently, obviously having the shop and owning the shop. But sometimes when you go into shops, I do like going into almost every whiskey shop I see, just to see what they have, and also cheekily, if it's certain shops, like looking at the prices and kind of snickering at them a bit. But I do like going in and just browsing and having a chat. But yeah, it can be when you speak to someone, and I know my fiance's dad, Stevie, so the almost father-in-law, he can feel that way as well when he goes into a place and he's having a chat, like almost pressured to buy something, but it's not external pressure. It's an internal thing. It's perceived pressure to go and buy something, just because you're taking up someone's time who's working, who's doing a job, and it can feel like that. But yeah, I never feel like that in Dunkeld Whiskey Box, and that's why I never buy from there.
Aye, fair enough. Maybe I should be setting this out all wrong. Yeah, there's actually going to be a time limit now. 10 minutes. If there's any more chat, you've got to sling your hook. No, I'm the same. I go to other whiskey shops or other independent shops, whether it's whiskey or not. And it is that, like you say, that kind of pressure you put on yourself that I feel I should buy something because, especially now, I know how hard it is to run a small business. I feel I should buy something. But then there's other times you think, actually, I don't really need or want anything from this place, but I might just go and tell my pal about it so that when they need or want something, they go there. So I think that's the other thing that's really important is if somebody feels comfortable and has a nice time, even if they don't buy something, they might tell their friend, they might tell their friend, they might tell their mum, they might come in. So yeah, it's the kind of long game, I guess.
Tony's saying, just back to the Elder Dower thing, that he first had his tour in 1987. I don't know what age you were, but I wasn't born. He's saying the area is wonderful. Yeah, it was. Edge of Dower, I don't really have much ties to it, sentimental wise, but I did go. We were staying in the old mill in the Pitlochry, me and Louise, and we went for a tour. Both of us. She came on the tour, something that she doesn't normally do. She's not always up for tours, but we went on the tour together, and yeah, what an absolutely gorgeous little distillery. Like, there's no other word for it. It's just gorgeous, and it's a beautiful area. Pretty much out the way, out like on a little beaten track, and even the drive to it, just driving down that kind of little farm road, it's brilliant.
Yeah, it is. It's absolutely beautiful up there, and I do quite a lot of road cycling. And to be able to cycle from Dunkeld, go up the back roads, go up past Edward Hour, and quite often there's a couple of the guys that work in the production, and I know them. You can kind of shout at them as you go in past, and there's just something about that. It's that sort of human aspect of whiskey that gets forgotten about. There's guys grafting with a forklift and moving pallets of bottles, and it's not the romantic side of it that the marketing teams and all the rest of it want you to think about, but it's that human connection. Although it did catch me out before, because when we started doing these online tastings I was talking about before, one of the first ones was for a 40th birthday party, I think it was. Guys that had to cancel meeting in a big house. And they were all over Scotland. I think a couple of them down in England. So we did a tasting for them. And I'd only done about 3 or 4 of these online tastings so far. So we're still finding our feet. I was thinking, okay, I know plenty about whiskey. I used to run a whiskey tour company. I should be all right. Chat. And then halfway through, I pulled out, it was a Signatory Mortlach, one of the unchill filtered collection ones. It tasted like cold toddies. It was amazing. But I'm chatting away going, oh, what tasting notes do you get? What do you think about it? Does anyone know about Mortlach or the production? And one of the guys went, yeah, I bottled that. I work for Signatory. I was like, all right, okay. What is it you do? Well, I work in all aspects of production. Okay, that's great. And then his pal typed up and said, well, yeah, and just so you know, I'm an alcohol lawyer for one of the big companies as well, specifically specializing in whiskey. Thanks for putting me on the spot. But yeah, they're still customers, so it's all good. But
That's good. Yeah, there's plenty of times that I get caught out when Ryan watches a video. There's nothing like that knowledge. Even well, obviously I'm not in the industry, but yourself being in the industry, these type of people, they just the knowledge that they have about the creation of it, the distillation, and that is absolutely unreal. And when you say something, luckily I've got Ryan who does correct me. He doesn't just nod along. But when you say something stupid, and yeah, you realise how stupid you're being. But I can imagine that being intimidating. Count Bassy's saying he has a specialised whiskey store 5 minutes from where he is, but he feels intimidated to go into the store because they only carry independent bottlers, so he just buys everything online. I mean, yeah, it's how you feel as a person. No one can pressure you to go into that shop, but I think you should. I think you should give it a go. Maybe see what the people are like. Get speaking to them, because you never know. You might find a new favourite shop, and if they're anything like Will and his team, it'll be a great shop. So yeah, I would encourage you to get into that shop. A Peu de Yeast, yeah. I buy a lot online, but it's a big bonus if you have a good relationship with a shop, if you're interested in hard to get bottles. Yeah, I think some people do build up that kind of connection with shops. Maybe not intentionally at first, to create that relationship so they can get hard to get bottles. But obviously it helps, and some shops will hold bottles back for certain customers, especially if they're frequent and things. But yeah, there's obviously an attraction to that, but it's not something personally that I'll be going to shops for. It depends on the shop. I don't know if you've seen that, Will. I mean, I think I've definitely asked you for bottles in the past. I won't hide that, like, for sure. Is that something that happens quite a lot? Do you see, are there people that just come out of the blue, out the woodworks, and ask you for bottles, or yeah?
yeah, it's really interesting because I was talking about Springbank earlier being the thing that we had on the shelves for so long, and we couldn't sell it. And then when everything flipped on its head with COVID and the whole world ran out of Springbank at the same time, now you know yourselves, you can sell it a million times over. The demand is there. So yeah, we definitely, as soon as there's a Springbank release or a Daft Mill release or one of these sought after bottles, the phone starts going, emails are going, and it's people who've never been in the shop, and that shouldn't mean that they shouldn't have access to any of this stuff. So we tried different ways to do it. We've tried ballots, which people just took the mickey out of, basically, people with 15,000 email addresses and all the rest of it. So now we just put everything on the shelf, and if the allocation is big enough to allow us, we'll split it and put it on the shelf and put it on the website, and then it's first come, first served. If it's only a small allocation, like some things we only get maybe 1 or 2 bottles of, and I think that's maybe what a lot of folk don't realize, is that we might have 2 bottles of something and there's 100 people trying to get it. So that's another reason we just put it on the shelf and say, okay, it's here. And I feel it's the fairest way to do it, because if we put it online, our website is homemade, it will crash inevitably, and then everybody's sad and upset because the 100 people might have it in their basket, but there's only 2 bottles. So yeah, it's a really tricky thing. There's obviously a lot of locals that support the shop regularly, but I don't think any of them expect anything. They just support their local whiskey shop because they know that we're going to have unusual stuff. And they know that because we are a wee bit off the beaten track, we're not in a big city. We're not in Glasgow, Edinburgh, Inverness. So they know when certain bottles will be arriving. You know, they get the email from the distillery. They know that they can nip in the car up the road from Perth or something and come in, and there's a high chance it's going to be on that shelf. So I guess they build a rapport that they know it's going to be there. That's not us going, oh, it'll be here on this day. Everybody seems to know before us, which is so frustrating. But so yeah, but there's definitely folk that just appear out of the woodwork having never purchased from us before, but they're only after a certain bottle, and that's totally fine. And if, you know, I don't mind who buys stuff, so long as they're buying stuff. It's not up to me to tell people what they should or shouldn't do with their whiskey. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely think just put it on the shelf, especially for where you are. I think that's the best idea, because if it gets somebody into Dunkeld just for a bottle of whiskey, they're not, well, I'd assume they're not just going to drive into Dunkeld just for a bottle of whiskey. I'd assume that they'd go for a coffee, or they might go and grab pizza by the water, or a bit of lunch by the water or something, because it's too, it'd probably be too difficult to just go into Pitlochry and not enjoy its, Dunkeld, go into Dunkeld and not enjoy its surroundings. So yeah, hopefully, I think that's a great way of doing it. Just putting it on the shelf, because yeah, like you say, the ballots don't always work. People get upset. There's bots. There's millions of emails, addresses. I like how Thompson Bros do their kind of balloting system, but that's a lot of effort, and they've got a bigger team to do that. But no, I think putting it on the shelf is probably the safest bet for doing that.
Yeah, I guess the other thing that we like about that is that, you know, these sought after bottles, it's often people in the know. It's people who are brand loyal. They know that dram. They know what they're looking for. But I like the idea that somebody can come in off the street and go, oh, what's this? I've never heard of this Daft Mill, or this 8 Doors, or this, nice one, Ryan. You know, I've never, what's Springbank? What's Long Row? Tell me about it. And then they buy it, and that's their gateway into discovering these great drams. Whereas if we put it online, it's going to be people in the know already. And yeah, it just feels really nice when somebody can discover a new whiskey in the shop. They might be a whiskey geek already, but they might not have tried this or this. And to see that moment of, try this, or they come back in, you know, a couple of weeks later and say, oh man, I found this Springbank 15 on your shelves. It's amazing. Can I have another one? Then you have to disappoint them again and say, in 3 months' time, you may be able to get another one if you're in the right time at the right place. But yeah.
I think that's great as well. Good way of looking at it, because that actually happened to me recently. I don't know if I was up for a course in Aberdeen, or if I was delayed. I think I must have been on a course or something in Aberdeen, and I went into Aberdeen Whisky Shop. Definitely another great shop that will hopefully feature on this format. But yeah, I went in, and like I said to you before, when we were in the kind of green room before the live actually went live, I was talking about how I'd stopped buying a lot of Daft Mill, stopped kind of chasing after it. But yeah, we'd walked into Aberdeen Whisky Shop, and we were in there speaking to Nick. He gave us a dram of the new Glenallachie 18, the new rebranding at the time, when that first came out, and he was giving us some other drams. And he got a delivery in, and he was like, oh, what's this? Berry Bros and Rudd on the side of it. Opened the box up, and there was Daft Mills. And he was like, oh, he started putting them on the shelf. He's like, this £100 or whatever for Daft Mill. And I was just like, yeah, okay. I was like, you've timed that well. That must have been, oh, there's Stuart walking down the street. Quick, get the Daft Mill on the shelf. But it was great. It was one of those, it felt like, because it was a coincidence, and because it's almost special, you feel kind of like, oh my god. And like you say, if someone just walks in the street and they see a Daft Mill or a Springbank on the shelf, or something just unique, it will give them a little bit of a dopamine kind of like, oh, look what I found.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And folk that, yeah, even if they're not discovering a new dram, like we've had deliveries of things, and the pallet's outside, and I'm trying to get it in the shop, and people, you know, people I've never met in my life are just walking past and they sort of do a double take and say, "Oh, is that what I think it is?" Like, yes, can I buy one? You can. I need to get it in the shop. I need to put it in the till, you know, and it's that moment of people almost doing a little happy dance in the shop, like kids on Christmas morning going, "Oh my goodness, like there's a delivery of this. Can I get hold of it now?" And it's lovely. And those are the folk that come back as well. Or they might, you know, they might live down in London, they're up here on holiday, but they buy stuff from us online, even though they could probably, you know, buy it from someone like Master and Malt. They might not have to pay the shipping and things. We're not big enough to sustain free shipping on everything. So yeah, they might buy a bottle of Glencadam 10 from us, pay the £6 that we charge them to ship it to London because they had a nice experience here or they discovered something. And yeah, it's wee things like that that all just add up and make it all amazing.
How do you? So obviously you drink whiskey, and obviously you'll have bottles of whiskey. How does that work being a shop owner? Because they always say never get high if you don't supply. Do you have to buy from yourself, or do you tend to buy elsewhere and go to different shops? How does that work?
It's a good question. I probably don't buy as much whiskey as I used to now because we do tastings and things. So if I'm doing a tasting in the shop, for example, I'll often try the drams along with the guys, or I'll be writing wee tasting notes and things in the kitchen the day before. So rather than having a whole bottle, Helen and I are going, okay, we're going to have a little sip of this, a little sip of this. So it kind of spreads out our love of whiskey from just little sips of different things rather than going, okay. But then every now and again, you find a bottle that you just go, oh yeah, we're gonna get one of those from ourselves. Or if we go to other whiskey shops, they will always try to buy something that we don't stock, so that we can try new things. And again, that might lead us to stock it. You never know. Or just drams that we know we're never going to stock, or we might not see. So yeah.
So I now have my edited clickbait title of shop owner admits he doesn't buy whiskey.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I hate indie retail.
I'm going to actually have some Springbank. This is another one of our little Tabe splits, a Springbank cage bottle, recharge sherry. So not first filler in it, and so hopefully that's quite good. I don't know what you're on with now. I'm guessing you've surpassed the Daft Mill.
I have, yeah. I'm actually having a little long row.
Oh.
Yeah, just
Something
non-age
I've not had in
statement
a
long
while.
row. Well, yeah, me either. We've got a tasting tomorrow night in the shop. We do these little kind of, well, call it Dunkeld Whisky Club. It's not a club at all. Anybody can come, but it's just pretty mellow, light-hearted, just a wee chat over some drams. And this is one of the drams we're putting in tomorrow night. And I haven't tried long row again for ages and ages. And you know, when you spend a lot of time describing whiskey, and people ask me about long row, and I've been describing it from memory, so I thought I should probably reacquaint myself with it, and it is just as good as I remember.
Does I think I met him last time when I was at your tasting a while ago. I think it was a Carnmore one. Is it Rory? And then the guy that does the skis. Do they still frequently come for tasting?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Jamie Kunka, the ski man. Yeah, Lonely Mountain Skis. If anybody's looking, incredible. Yeah, they still come in, and that's what I love. It's the locals that are coming to these tastings and things, and it's when you get that perfect mixture of locals and visitors all just sitting around having a dram, whether it's in the shop or the PA across the road, wherever we decide to host it, and it's great. It's great. I think that's the best bit for us, is when you're having a hard day, when sales have been down and you're thinking, oh, what am I doing? Or you've just had a day trying to do your VAT return, and it's like, oh man, those little bits of, okay, I've had a hard day, but now look at the enjoyment that everybody's having, just sharing a dram, and we're just chatting. You know, you can get hung up on tasting notes and all that kind of stuff, which obviously that's my job to do. But just when everybody's just enjoying a dram and everything just flows naturally, it's so rewarding. I know that sounds really cheesy, but it's what we wanted the shop to be, you know.
How did you find doing tastings and that? Did you find it quite kind of nerve-wracking at first? I know sometimes you'll have people from the actual distilleries or the companies come in and do do their bit of it. But yeah, how do you find that?
Yeah, definitely. I still get nervous. Yeah, I always get nervous before a tasting, and I think if I didn't get nervous, then maybe I should rethink what I'm doing, because you want to make sure that everybody has a phenomenal time, whether
Yeah,
that's the drams, the conversation. I want to be able to answer the questions, so I'm always looking up the facts and the figures and things. I guess it's made it a little bit easier from the fact that when I used to do tours, I used to talk about whiskey a lot. I used to talk about distilleries. I used to be driving at the same time. So yeah, I guess the talking aspect of it is fine, but it's just making sure I've got all the facts and the figures without boring people as well. You were asking about other whiskey shops. Never mind the shops, it was kind of experiences that I used to take guests to, not in whiskey shops, but whiskey tasting events that were just so dry.
try.
And I swore I wouldn't ever be the person that goes, "Oh, you should always do this, or always do that, or you should always put this in." Enjoy your whiskey how you want to enjoy it. And we're certainly not. We don't review whiskies because we sell a multitude of all whiskies. I don't think it would be fair as a retailer to review things.
No.
We only stock whiskies that we like, so that's fine. But yeah, so these tastings are supposed to be kind of fun, but also informative, if the group wants them to be informative. Sometimes you get a private group that literally just wants to have a really nice chat, enjoy some drams, and you leave them to it. And other times there's a million questions, which I'm delighted to answer as well. So yeah, I really enjoy the tastings, but I do still get nervous before I do them.
How's it tie in with the kind of financial side of things? How does that impact the income? Is it quite a significant part of it, or is it just a little part of it? Or does it go hand in hand with obviously sales of whiskey and also the tastings?
It depends on the tasting, to be honest. Sometimes we'll maybe do a tasting, an external venue. Somebody will book us to come and just do a private whiskey tasting. We need to head up to a big house somewhere, or to a pub or a hotel. And often that is for a group of people who just want a tasting. They're not going to buy anything that day. They may be traveling as well. They don't want to be carrying stuff around, so that that the revenue is only going to be from that tasting. But you hope that you're going to engage people well enough that they might buy from you in the future, or they might recommend you. But so long as they've had a good time, obviously we're charging them for the tasting. So as long as they've had a good time, that's all good. Other times you'll find that people want to do a tasting, and then the sole purpose is they want to buy some whiskey that they've tried. So yeah, obviously, I think we're all aware that a little dram here and there helps to sell whiskey, regardless whether you're in a distillery, on a tour, in a big shop, a little shop. So when people are doing a tasting, I think a lot of folk are thinking, okay, I like that one. Maybe I'll buy that, or maybe I'll buy that. So yeah, it definitely is a significant part of it, of our business model, I guess, is doing the tastings. But again, there's never any pressure to buy anything. No. Because yeah, we've charged for the tasting.
There's never pressure. You never feel the pressure in Dunkeld Whisky Box, and as I say, a lot of shops are the same. There are certain shops where you go in and you can kind of feel the hovering in that, but there's nothing like that with yourselves. Long Row Red is replaced by 100 proof Long Row. Yeah, how do you feel about that? So personally, I'm not too bothered, because I still think they're actually doing the red wine maturation and finishes. They're just not going to have an age, I believe. But yeah, I think they're trying to be a bit more sustainable, because the Long Row Reds at the moment just aren't feasible for them to keep them going, especially with the stock that they've got. But yeah, I don't see an issue with that. I don't know if you've heard about that, Will, the change that's coming to that. But yeah, I don't think it'll be too bad. As long as the value's there and the whiskey's good, I can't get too hung up on it.
Yeah, I agree. And you hear so many kind of rumors flying around as well. And often, I think I alluded to it earlier, we find out what releases are coming, what's being stopped, what's happening at various distilleries long before we get the official party line from the distillers themselves. So yeah, and until I see it from a distillery or something, I tend to just ignore everything. and then play what's in front of me. But yeah, I think you're right. There's obviously lots of changes at lots of different distilleries and bottlers and things. But so long as the quality and the value are there, then I don't think it really matters to us. People are talking about this Longrow 18 being the last Longrow 18 for a while and things. Well, okay, maybe there'll be something new and exciting to replace it that's equally as good, if not better. But so long as the value is there, I think that's the key that we've learned in the last couple of years, especially. It's value for money whiskey. That doesn't mean cheap. It doesn't mean expensive. It's just value.
Yeah, if you get like a decent aged or a well-aged whiskey, a good value, that's value for money, even if it is 100, 150, 200. I remember when, I'm obviously quite young in a sense, almost 30. I wouldn't say quite young, but when I started drinking whiskey wasn't it wasn't the cheapest it was, but the increases in prices since I've been drinking whiskey is mental, especially with aged whiskey. Like I remember 18-year-olds being under 100 or just over 100, and now you're finding that a lot of 18s could be upwards of 200. That's something I've probably not said. You've touched on it, that the value with Dunkeld whiskey box is definitely there. Obviously, I go through the A9 and go to Dunkeld whiskey box, go to Robertson's and Drinkmonger and Pitlochry, and they're all reasonably priced. But yourselves, the value's there for what you're selling, and the experience as well for me makes it worth it. What I was going to say as well, is there any chance or is there any plans for expansion or slight getting bigger? Because obviously the shop it's not tiny. I always describe it as quaint, but it's a small shop and it's stock. You must be running out of space, or are you quite happy with what you got and where you are and what you're selling?
It's a bit of both, to be honest, and it depends what time of year you ask me. So this time of year, when it's absolutely freezing, I think I wish I had a smaller shop so that I could be closer to the heater. Peak season in the middle of the summer when the doors open and the shop's full of people and I can't keep enough stuff on the shelves, then I think, I wish I had a bigger shop. So it's a really tricky one. When we first started, the plan was, let's get retail right in the space, then we'll go online and then we'll see what happens. I'm still toy with the idea of maybe adding a kind of tourism element back into the shop. We're sort of, obviously we've been here for 5 years, which is a reasonable amount of time now, but the 2 and a bit years of COVID kind of skewed everything. So we're kind of behind where the plan would be, I guess. So yeah, I don't know is the simple answer. I think our biggest problem is storage. We don't have storage. So when you come in the shop, the shelves are designed to store the bottles, but that means we can't buy lots of stock and store it. So we have to kind of buy little and often. So to have a place that had more storage would be amazing. But also, I love the space that we're in. I'd like more comfortable seats in the windows, but we have to work with what we've got. So yeah, I don't know is the simple answer. I would love to have another something whiskey box at some point in the future. At the moment, I think we're finally getting into a phase of the business, hopefully, where everything just starts to tick along. There's not going to be, hopefully, another global pandemic, or something's not going to be squeezed, or Theresa May's not going to pop up and do something crazy with the budget. So I'm hoping that we can just have just 1 year of whatever normal trading is before we have to make any decisions about what we want to do. But yeah, I'd love to do more things with whiskey. What that is, I'm not sure. So I'm open to suggestions from anybody. But yeah.
Well, Tony's just said it'd be a great coffee shop. I think there's plenty of coffee shops around Dunkeld, and
it's one thing that Dunkeld and Burnham do not have a shortage of is good coffee shops. So yeah,
you might just have like one of those espresso machines and just give someone a coffee if they ask for it. No, I think I don't know if you'll see it. It's like when you look at yourself in the mirror every day and you don't really see changes because you're the one looking at it. But you think the concept of the shop from 2019 I say would be a great coffee stop. The shop was a typo. Um, yeah, the Dunkeld's a great coffee stop. But from the concept and from the actual becoming a shop in 2019 to where you are now, like you think there has been a lot of changes with going through COVID and things, but you've got your license for selling the whiskey, like you showed the blackboard. You got your license for selling whiskey in the shop by the dram. You've done virtual tastings, you've done actual physical tastings, and yeah, to where you are now, it's quite good seeing the progress and being able to be there, not necessarily be there from the start myself, but being able to watch your progress is good to see. And it's interesting to think what or imagine what's going to be next. What's the next thing? That's why I was asking about expansion as well. It's yeah.
Almost seems like you're asking for a job there, Stuart. I don't know.
Oh, I would love it.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things, and as the shop kind of evolves and as we get a wee, hopefully good reputation and things, I'm very aware that I don't want to change anything too quickly as well, because the last thing I want to do is try something new and then neglect the bit that we've spent the last 5 years in blood, sweat, and tears trying to build, or that somebody comes through the door and doesn't get the experience that they expect and should get from the shop because my brain or Helen's brain is somewhere else in another project. So I think it's that really fine line of making sure that everything's right, but making sure that we can just grow sustainably somehow. But yeah, what that's going to be, there's a few ideas racing through my head, but what that looks like in the end, I don't quite know yet. But yeah, there'll be some
wasted degrees on tap.
Oh, I think about that all the time. I've said to the guys up there, to Connell and Jack, just having like a wee keg machine just sitting on the bar or something. But yeah, you're talking about getting high on your own supply. That'd be a very slippery slope for me.
Yeah, just be sitting there drinking all day. Bart's actually said he's the international part of our bottle split group. He's just said this is a job interview. Just right before you said about it being a job interview. Yeah, no, I have enjoyed seeing the progression. It's the same with Aberdeen Whisky Shop, like seeing how they've changed and expanded, and another great shop, of course. It's just interesting, especially for enthusiasts and people who are frequenting the shop and buying from the shop and visiting. It's good to see where it goes and where it's going. But yeah, that's pretty much it from me. I've really enjoyed catching up. The last time I was in, dropping drams, you weren't in, but it was fine. Louise was happy because I didn't stop and chat for about half an hour. So we got on our way and we were through Pit Lockley pretty quick. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to say. I have asked the chat if there's any questions they've got. I think they've asked some, brought up some issues, brought up some topics. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything else you want to say.
I just really want to say thank you. I mean, thank you to you for having me on and inviting me onto this. It's something I never thought that I'd be doing. I guess it's that whole sort of Scottish thing about not blowing your own trumpet. I'm Welsh anyway, but I've grown up in Scotland my whole life. But that British thing about you don't like to kind of say, oh yeah, look at us, this is what we do. So to be able to do it and feel comfortable doing it with a platform like this, I really, really appreciate it. And to yourself and anyone who's watching and listening that's been in the shop and supported us, thank you. Again, whether that's buying from us or just telling your pals as a whiskey shop in Dunkeld, like as a small business, and I know you hear this all the time on the telly and on the news, but as a small business owned by a husband and wife, it is incredible. And we are so grateful for the support from any customer that comes in the door or shares a wee bit of love for the shop. So thanks for having us, and thank you to everybody that's shopped with us or will shop with us.
Yeah, there's absolutely no bother. Like it's I wanted to do it mainly so I could have a wee drink, but also a catch up is. I always try to make these live streams, whether it's I've got a guest or whether it's just me. It's just a chance to have a wee chat, have a wee drink. But one of my main reasons, like I said to you before and said on Instagram for doing this, is to get recognitions to shops like yourself, because I really enjoy my experiences at the shop. I really enjoy coming into shop, so I think if I enjoy it, other people will too. And if it helps me get some views, yeah, woo, yeah. But if it helps yourself get some custom, then yeah, that's what it's all about. Keep buying whiskey. Everybody should buy whiskey and have whiskey. But someone did ask about what long row I'm drinking. It is a Springbank cage bottle. Yeah, it's really good. It deserves more time, so I've actually kept a little bit of it left because my brain's focused more on trying to speak and trying to be somewhat eloquent and clear with my speaking. But yeah, so I'm not really paying too much of the time to the whiskey. It's more just a grease at this point, just to lubricate me. Um, so yeah, uh, I'll say thanks to you, Will, as well. Thanks for joining. I know these things could be slightly weird, slightly awkward, just the format and that. It's not always everyone's cup of tea, but yeah, I've really enjoyed speaking to yourself, and hopefully there'll be people out there that will visit Dunkeld Whisky Box because it's a great shop.
Oh, cheers, Stuart. I've actually just seen John's comment there as well. Welsh. If I'd known you were Welsh, Will. Well, yeah. Welsh originally, John, I'm afraid to say. South Wales. But yeah, I moved to Scotland when I was 8. So I don't know.
Yeah, there's something funny about the accent, John. I'm surprised you didn't pick up on it before. I didn't want to bring it up.
I haven't got any Welsh whiskey in the shop at the moment, though. Maybe I should. I think we should maybe get some Welsh whiskey in, but that's a conversation for the next one.
Right. Thank you very much. I'm going to end the stream. Thanks everybody for joining in. For you that joined in the chat. If you want to check out Dunkeld Whisky Box, they've obviously got an online shop, an online presence, but I would 100%, if you can, get to the shop. If it's not just to visit the shop, it's to visit the local area as well, the surroundings, because it's brilliant there. And the last thing I want to say is thanks to all my Patreons, who should all be up there, and that should all be up to date. So thank you all for supporting the channel. So that's it. We'll see you next time, and hopefully we'll have a better shop on next time.
Oh, thanks very much.
Oh, right, that should